Our guest this morning is the Governor of Wajir County, who's also the Vice Chairman of the Council of Governors, FCPA, Ahmed Abdullahi. Governor, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you today?
I'm very good.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we begin the conversation on this sad note following the death of the general. And we'll be coming to you just to get your message of condolence, I'm sure, to the people of Kenya, to the country. You tell us if you interacted with the general at all or any of the other military officers who passed on yesterday.
Thank you. It's really a very sad day for us. What happened yesterday was a shock. So I want to pass my condolences to the families and friends of the general and the gallant soldiers who passed on. I want to pass my condolences on behalf of the Council of Governors, on behalf of the people of Wajir, and on my own behalf, to the KDF fraternity, to the President as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. As the people of Wajir, we have a very special relationship with KDF, one of the biggest bases for both the Kenya Army and for Kenya Air Force is in Wajir, actually. And 2 days ago, we were with the General at the closing ceremony of the wage bill conference, and we chatted on the sides, and he actually told me he plans to come to Wajir. They've been very helpful to us during the flood situation that we've had, where they were actually airlifting food to very peripheral places. And I remember even one of their planes crashed at one of our centers in the process. So I've interacted with the general many times before, and it was really a shocker. You know, we were in this meeting discussing how to get back the doctors back to work when we got the message. And you know, that's how life is. You know, it's sad, but I pray that his family has the patience, of the strength of patience to bear this loss. I pray that the KDF and the fraternity of the disciplined forces have the patience, the strength of patience to bear this loss, and may they all rest in peace.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that message. And also it's the same similar message that we pass from the three of us and the entire crew at Spice FM. This very tragic occasion where, yes, we are looking at gallant soldiers, people who have dedicated their life in service of the country. And so, when we see this, we all mourn. Governor Siti Muga is a man who loves proverbs. Every week he goes into one country in Africa. He researches, as he always does in many other things. He now this time researches for proverbs and then brings us proverbs from that country. This week, the man has been in West Africa, in a country called Cape Verde, which is an archipelago of islands, right?
Yes. 10 islands to be
10 islands.
To be precise, yes. But of interest, there is a collection of similar islands that form what we call an archipelago. And it's actually a very interesting name. It's a Macaronesian ecoregion. It's an interesting term, but it covers certain other areas around the globe that have similar features. One of them is Madeira, the Azores, the Canary Islands, and the Savage Isles. Interesting features.
They're called Macaronesian
ecoregion. It's an ecoregion, yes. Meaning they are very specific and special features. Okay, yes. You consider it as an entity, but it's very, very many islands. 2 or 3 big ones, but others more or less dotted.
Right.
And you'll find that the capital city is probably in the biggest of those particular islands.
Right.
Now the proverb. If the baboon could see his behind, he'd laugh also.
If the baboon could see its behind, he'd laugh also.
Yes.
Governor, what do you think this proverb is telling us?
We have similar proverbs, actually, in many African languages. And I think it's got to do with something similar to removing the speck in the other's eye.
When you have a log in
you're leaving the log in your own.
I don't know. So, usually we don't introspect, we look at faults in others, but yes, and it's others who see what's wrong with us, not ourselves, basically, yeah. So I don't know, that's how I understand it, yeah.
If we introspect, we'd also notice a number of things with us.
Yeah.
Okay, time for that introspection. Now, of course, we just marked 10 years of devolution last year. And we are now having this conversation about devolution and what devolution has done to the country, how far we are going. We have those independent offices that were established to make sure that especially our public finance is managed well. You are an FCPA. You are a fellow of the accountants. The controller of budget has been raising a couple of issues. The Auditor General has also been raising a couple of issues, of course, touching on counties and, how money is being spent in counties. Some of those have been flagging issues that the Controller of Budget, for example, says, look, something as basic as employment, something as basic as just balancing between development and recurrent expenditure. Many counties are flouting this.
Yeah.
PFM Act and the laws say do not spend more than 70% of your budget on recurrent expenditure. Many counties have gone beyond the 70%. Why is it so, Governor?
Very good. Thank you very much. We have seen the issues raised by the controller of budget. And we're just out of the wage bill conference. And on day one, I was among the speakers representing the Council of Governors, and I touched on a number of these things. And the challenge that we have, I think, is not so much bringing out the flouting of those ratios, because indeed they are ratios. When you say 70% should not be spent on more than 7% should not be spent on recurrent, it's 7% of what? 7% of the revenues. When you say not more than 35% should spend on wage bill, 35% of what? Wage bill as a percentage of
revenues.
And the issue that I brought out, which I bring out here, is every ratio has a numerator and a denominator. And we only seem to talk of the ratio with respect to the numerator, but no one wants to discuss the denominator, which is revenues. And that's where we start. So for the ratios, I think our expenditure problem, be it on recurrent expenditure in total or on wage bill, is more of a revenue issue than an expenditure issue. And I'll demonstrate that to you. It's more of a revenue problem, not so much an expenditure problem. That's not to say that there are not things that are going wrong on the expenditure side. But I will come to that later. Why is it a revenue issue? Our constitution is very clear. The framers of this constitution actually left nothing to chance. They protected devolution. They were very clear as to the separation of roles between the national government and the county government. And when you look at the fourth schedule of the constitution that lists out about 14 functions precisely that are devolved, they were very clear what it is that they intended the counties to do. And they also left it, they were not ambiguous in the way revenues ought to be shared. They said resources must follow functions.
Yep.
That's key. Resources must follow functions. And Article 6.2 of the Constitution was also very clear that governments are distinct. They're separate from each other. They're interdependent. Which means county governments are separate and distinct from the national government. But people also forget that the county governments are also distinct and separate from each other as governments. So the formula of how we share these revenues, first vertically between the national and the county governments, and then horizontally between the county governments is very clear, while respecting that resources follow
functions.
And I think this is the gist of the problem. We're not adhering to that. We're not adhering to that.
Why, Governor? Why is there no adherence to what has already been laid down and what would have assumed to be rule of law?
Because the key arbiter in this division of revenue is the CRA. The CRA is an independent constitutional commission whose role really is basically to oversee vertical share of revenue between national and counties and horizontal share of revenue between counties. But CRA's recommendations are not binding. Yet decisions on pay by SRC are binding. And it's part of the challenge. Two, after CRA makes the recommendation, it then becomes a political process. A political process. Because it goes to the Houses of Parliament. It goes to the Senate, and it goes to the National Assembly. And the politics of things gets in the way. And governors have no leverage at that level. And we've also seen disagreements even between the Senate and the National Assembly. We've had situations where National Assembly finalizes the division of revenue without input from the Senate, or without solving the disagreements that it has with Senate. We have had situations where Senate is mobilized politically to agree with the National Assembly to the detriment of the counties, in total disregard to the position of the counties and in total disregard to the position of the to the Commission of Revenue Allocation. So the revenue has not been growing at the same pace with the growth of these expenditures.
Have the functions increased?
The challenge of revenue is twofold. One, there are functions that are yet to be unbundled, finalized, and transferred. We're still going on with the process of unbundling of functions 10 years down the road, 12 years down the road. Two, even for the functions that have been unbundled, devolved, transferred to the counties, we still have a lot of resources relating to those functions at the national level. The framers of our constitution were very clear that for devolved functions, what the national government retains is policy and standards, but the implementation belongs to the counties. That has not been complied with faithfully. And I think an impression has been created. And I think it also emanates from the way we do our politics. It's almost becoming existential for national government to claw back on devolution. Why do I say this? Because they feel that if they don't do that, they will not be at the grassroots where the rubber meets the road. The counties and the governors will be more relevant. So they then end up doing exactly the same things we are
So there's a duplication of functions.
There's a duplication of functions.
Is that now what I'm understanding you to say? Because we just tackling the issue of public wage bill at county level. Is it your position here that the number of employees and your wage bill is justified? It's only that the money that comes to counties is not enough?
Precisely. What I'm saying is...
So you're saying you have not overemployed at county level?
If
you're not overspending on salaries at county level, all you need is more money to come to the counties.
I'll discuss our problems of the wage bill that's controllable at the county level. I'll come to that. But what I'm saying is the challenge of the ratio is more of a revenue problem than an expenditure problem. Why do I say that? Recently, the IGRTC, I think it's called Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. This is a commission of sorts. It's not really a constitutional commission yet, but it's a technical committee, the successor of the Transition Authority, that was to do the residual work of the Transition Authority in ensuring that this unbundling and split of functions and resources is consummated, is completed. Came up with a figure of 272 billion shillings relating to functions that have either been devolved and transferred, whose monies are still being kept at the national level, or functions that ought to have been devolved. It was a costing of those functions. Functions belonging to counties that have been carried out by national government. The current suggested revenue to counties, share of revenue to counties for fiscal year 2024-25 is 391 billion, which is only 5.7 billion more than last year's, which is 5.7 billion more than the previous
the current financial
year.
Yeah.
Now, if you add 272 to that number, I'm a guy of numbers, so you will get 663 billion
that ought to be going to devolution,
going to counties.
Okay.
Right? And that is the crux of the matter.
But then,
that's
Governor,
the conversation.
Let me hold you there.
Yeah.
IGRTC says this is costing of functions that should be getting performed by counties,
yes,
but are not being performed by counties. So why have you hired people to perform those functions if the functions are still being, they have not been unbundled and transferred to the counties?
In my view, and I remember saying that, they do not only relate to functions that have completely not been transferred. They also relate to functions that have been transferred. They relate to concurrent functions, because the functions are of three types. The functions that are purely national government functions, things to do with defense, security, foreign affairs, and the like. Then there are functions that are concurrent, and there are functions that are ought to be
purely
functions
county.
of. Yes. So if this unbundling process were to be completed, if all the resources relating to functions being performed by counties or to be performed by counties were also transferred to the counties, we will not be talking about inability of any of the counties to meet these two significant ratios. One on total recurrent expenditure as a percentage of revenue, and the other as wage bill to revenue. So that's one side of the story. The other side is no one is looking at the growth in service delivery of functions that have been devolved and transferred with respect to or as against the growth in the revenue. And I want to give you numbers here, which numbers we also brought out at the wage conference. Very basic. We had 874 doctors in county hospitals at the onset of devolution in 2013. Now we have over 4,600. Actually, I don't have the exact figure, but I can get that. We have close to 5,000 doctors in
County facilities.
County facilities. We had 6,000 thereabout nurses. Today we have 31,000 nurses in county facilities. We had 1,700 agricultural extension officers. Now we have over 8,000 agricultural extension officers. We had nearly zero ECD teachers, because the few there were either being paid by parents or a few local authorities, a few of the urban local authorities. Today we have 42,000 ECD teachers on the payroll of counties. What was devolution supposed to do? Devolution was supposed to take services closer to the people. Right? I'll give you an example. The county of Wajir, before devolution, was the district of Wajir. Which district had the same boundaries from the eve of independence to date, right? It became a county with its boundaries as delineated on the eve of
independence.
It had one doctor, one trained doctor. One, moja.
What's the size in square kilometers now compared to other counties? How many counties fit into Wajir?
I can. There's so many. Maybe you should be asking how many provinces, because it is precisely 10% of the landmass
this country
of Kenya. 10%
is Wajir County.
Of every inch of the Kenyan landmass is in Wajir County.
And it had one doctor.
It had one doctor. Right? It had one place where you could carry out basic surgery, where you could carry out cesarean section. Right? So if that doctor is on leave, you will have to bring that mama by road to Garissa County. And in fact, there are so many kids who were born in Garissa as a result of that. People of about my age, there are many called so-and-so Garissa, Eric Garissa.
Because they were born in Garissa.
Because their moms required a cesarean section and they had to brought. Now, the farthest point from the headquarters is almost 300 kilometers from where I sit as governor. So, and Garissa is about 330 kilometers from Wajir headquarters. That means if someone had to be brought from the Ethiopian border at Bute and needed a cesarean, you'll have to bring them by road to Wajir and then to Garissa. That's over 600 kilometers. Today,
on a road network which was not that.
There's no road. Up to today, for most of the section, there's no road. Right? We just have those earth roads, which you try and gravel and grade. And then when it rains, because a lot of our road sections are also black cotton soil, you're kaput. You have to wait for them to dry. So, and now, in Wajir County, as we speak today, we have 62 doctors, and we have 13 that we're bringing on board now. That is what? 75 doctors. Okay? Of these 62, 19 of them have already trained as consultants. So we have 19 consultants in Wajir County. We've done all manner of surgeries, including what they call laparoscopic surgery. We've done a hip replacement surgery in Wajir County Hospital. A successful hip replacement surgery. That's in 10 years, right? We have at least 5 facilities where cesarean can be done today. We are progressing another 8 into level 4. So hopefully in another year, we'll have 13 places where cesarean surgery can happen. We are improving our level 4 hospital into a level 5. We're putting up a facility which will be up and running by the end of this fiscal year.
The point of this is that services have increased.
The point I'm trying to make is devolution is doing what it ought to have done. When these numbers have grown in these ratios, for the facilities also, there were about 8,000 facilities at counties of all sizes. Now they are over 16,000. Right? So these numbers have grown tremendously. But the revenue has not grown in the same ratio. Now, this is the gist of the matter. This is the discussion that our friends at National Treasury and even SRC and in the independent constitutional commissions do not want to have.
Let's take a break.
And this is the crux of the matter. So we have then now replaced that with what? With blanket condemnation of counties, scandalizing of counties, serialization of audit reports of counties in the media. We don't see a lot of serialization of national government entities in the media, prosecuting issues to do with counties in the media. So there is a statement that was made by my party leader at the last DEFCON. ODM through and through, just so you know. Which is that the tragedy in this country is the work happens in the counties. Those are the people who struggle to deal with floods, with the drought, with emergencies, and with all manner of things. But the narrative is controlled by the national bureaucracy and the national politicians who have hang-ups of the centralist system that we dismantled under the new
Constitution.
This is the challenge.
FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi is the governor of Wajir County. He is the vice chairman of the Council of Governors. So we've seen all those reports, the Auditor General's reports, the Controller of Budget reports, but has even at the wage bill conference last week discussing, in fact at some point you're saying, counties have become employment bureaus. Just employing. You've even burst the threshold of how much you should be spending on salaries versus development. Why is this? The Council of Governors Vice Chair is here to respond to that.
So this is the question. I mean, we talked about 75 doctors from a time whereby there was no doctor, or there was one doctor around the county. A lot of how the committees or the commissions say how money will be sent to the counties is formulaic. They say this plus this equals this, and that's how we're going to arrive at the money that we give counties, isn't it? Should it be the same thing on the other side, that we say, well, this amount of money has come to the counties over the last 10 years of devolution? We should then have been able to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a result of the money that has gone in. Would you say, taking Wajir as an example, that the amount of money that has been given to the counties over this particular county over the last 10 years of devolution, that there is commensurate development that can now be aligned to the money that was given before we even start to ask for more, or before we ask for more support? Can we see that 1 equals 1?
Very much so, actually, and I think I've demonstrated with that. If you take the area of water, for instance, Wajir County has no lakes, no rivers. We use what's called deep boreholes. We drill water wells.
How deep?
Right? In some places as deep as 300, 350. We even tried one of over 400. In others, you'll get water at 100, 150, on average 200. So, and some places are water poor, even within Wajir County. There are places where you drill, you find water, others where you really struggle. But across board, we have increased that borehole cover by more than fourfold. Because we had about 82 boreholes, now we're talking of 362, 367 boreholes, actually, by the latest count. In fact, now the challenge is maintaining them, right? Maintaining them. And the challenge is controlling spatial development, because people are moving from place with water to place with no water, and then you have to follow them and drill boreholes. So across all, Wajir had no kilometer of tarmac. Today in the CBD, we have over 50 kilometers of tarmac. And so we can go sector by sector. And governments are bureaucracy. The county government is a bureaucracy like the national. There will be audit issues. There will be queries here and there. The challenge that we have is in this country, and I can tell you as someone who's been in this field, I have been in public audit. Public audit means accounting firms that audit other. I worked for Deloitte most of my life before I got into politics. The way we look at accountability in the public sector is totally different from the way we look at it in the private sector. In the private sector, we bring out the issues with a mindset of value addition and improvement. In public sector, we look at it from an accusatory perspective, right? And the basic, tenet of audit is that the auditor is not a bloodhound. He's a watchdog.
Okay.
In government, it looks like it's the other way.
It's interesting that you say that, Governor. If I can just,
let me so that I don't lose my thought.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? Because in private sector, you'll be told these are your issues. You could actually have a clean audit report, but with 100 pages of recommendations. You get what I mean? Because issues were found, but they were not material to the balances. In the government side, it might not be like that. Even a small item, right, will lead to a qualification. How can it be? We employ accountants, right? Even in the first year of 2013, not a single county got what is called an unqualified audit report, which is a clean audit report. The only time any county got a clean audit report, I think, is one time when McQueen was given an unqualified opinion by the Auditor General. And the Senate said, no, it can't be. How can this have happened? We'll institute our own audit.
So it's almost as if you need to have some kind of negative tint on your report?
Yes. And for the first 5 years, most counties got a qualified opinion. Qualified means there are issues, but it doesn't mean it's too adverse. Because adverse means we're unable to even carry out an audit. The records were not adding up. And there are some that actually get adverse reports in some of the years. In the first 5 years, a lot of audit counties were getting qualified opinion on account of the assets and liabilities from national government not having been fully transferred, right? So the issue of transfer of assets and liabilities from the defunct county councils and from the ministries that transferred functions not having been completed by who? By the transition authority.
Okay.
And yet it's a qualification on
that goes on the county.
On the county. So I think we need to because, as an accountant, and as a person who's been in this field for long, I really believe in accountability. But I think we are politicizing accountability. We are politicizing. Because when a representative of the Auditor General, for instance, goes to the wage conference and says wage bill is being used to siphon money out of counties, right? And you have audited the books. Who are these ghost workers who are earning? Are they not Kenyans? Is their detail not there? Isn't there a payroll manager? Isn't there a payroll accountant? Isn't there a chief officer? By the way, the chief officer in the county has exactly the same role and is functioned in the same way as a principal secretary
at national level.
At the national level. The CEC is exactly what a minister is at the national level. We have directors, we have CFOs, and these are very qualified people. So instead of then prosecuting every case on its own individual merit, what you'll read in the newspapers, it's as if it's the governor who took a sheet of paper and wrote names of ghost workers and said, put these ones for me in the payroll.
But Governor,
this is where we're losing it.
You're the chief executive. So
Yes.
if a county, for example, if an auditor comes to the county
Yes.
and looks at the payroll
Yes.
and cannot account for every human being that is working for the county versus those that are being paid, they'll raise it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If they look at the kind of expenditures that have happened in this county. So, for example, you look at the county assembly members took a trip to this and the other. County executive committee members took a trip to this and the other. And you're looking at them and you're seeing these are high figures and you flag them. You flag them. As the chief executive of that county, the political responsibility lies with you.
Yes.
And that's where the issue of the governor comes in.
Yes.
And I'm sure you can understand that. So when we see a bloated workforce in a county, and we see when a new governor comes in, they say, I want to audit, I want to remove all the ghost workers, and then the next audit report after that still has ghost workers, then we know you removed the ghost workers of the previous guy, you've brought your own ghosts.
And let me say this. We could deal with the issue of the ghost workers and all those things you're saying without having to politicize them. And by the way, we weed out ghost workers. We weed out. I can tell you for sure. We weed out ghost workers. There is not a month or a quarter where we don't take out someone out of the payroll. And sometimes you even respond to, we even resort to very desperate measures. My assembly, for instance, had a problem of ghost workers. And because assembly is all in one place, it's in one building, what did the speaker do? He brought biometric, what do you call?
Key cards.
Yes.
Key card to enter and log in and log out. And we realized even lawyers who are practicing here in town were on the payroll
Or
of
working for the county.
yeah. So these things do happen, right? But again, there are 47 county governments. There are 47 county governments. I will also accept that sometimes, just like any other organization, the tone at the top, the belief in controls of the CEO can have an impact. It can have an impact on the culture, right? I ran a county for 5 years. I was out because of the politics of things as well. You know my story and the courts and, it's a long story. I got back after 5 years, right? I came back to totally different ratios from the ones that
But you left.
I left, right? I came back to pensions arrears, which I didn't leave myself, which I'm now trying to sort out, and I'm paying mine on time. So yes, the tone at the top, the control environment, all these things the culture can be driven by a governor. But and what I'm trying to drive at is the fact that you probably have a governor who is not looking at those ratios, who probably doesn't understand them, shouldn't mean that the accountants and the chief officers and the people who are actually the doers, the technical doers, go scot-free. And this is why I say we will get somewhere if we strengthen individual accountability, if we do not over-politicize accountability, and if we tackle it with a mindset of placing responsibility where accountability is and gradually improving, right? I think so that it's not only accusatory, and I'm sure these things also happen at parastatals. They happen at national government level, but it is not condemned in the same manner as it's being condemned in the counties. One of the things that I said, which is not politically correct, and I'm one of those governors who sometimes says things that are not very politically correct, because as governors we actually feel pretty much intimidated because of the media, because of the way we've been accused of everywhere. It's like all the ills in this country is attributed to counties and to governors. Actually, some of the governors who joined us from the National Assembly and the Senate are in shock. And some of them say, the things we used to do to you guys and the things we used to say about you and the reality we're tackling on the ground is totally different. So we've come full cycle also,
but
right?
Yeah. How do you marry everything that you've said, which is, in essence, is aspirational, good governance, accountability? How do you marry it with the aspirations of the people of that county?
I think the people of every county in Kenya need adherence to good governance. They need the best of service delivery from their county government and also from the national government.
How do they, yes, we say the words, but how does the Mwananchi in your county understand the concept of good governance? How do they understand the concept of a good governor?
How they understand the concept of a good governor and good governance, in spite of the shenanigans of our politics and how we play it, and ethnicity and parties, and is how they elected me back.
Precisely.
Yeah.
They have things which they consider to be important, and those come to the very, very fore. Because a lot of the things that governors are accused of, if you look at the aspirations of the 190, this thing about bloated workforce, it's because people need to be, not want, they need to be employed.
Yes.
And the avenue that they have for employment
is government.
Yes, and it's their county. It is their county. They feel this is our county. And the pressure that the MCAs will have is precisely that.
Yes.
Employment in many instances take precedence over roads, hospitals, what have you. Because employment is personal and the benefits are direct. And everything else that follows, in many ways, is secondary. You have a track record and you can speak of it and you can talk and document.
Yes.
There are counties that didn't have these problems. They had hospitals. They had roads.
They had doctors.
They had doctors. They had schools. Okay? If you were to look at those counties now, you'd be hard-pressed to find any upward mobility in terms of development and improvement. It's like they more or less stagnated. Minimum changes here and there. Now, when some of these accusations are made, yes, indeed they are political, we understand this, but it cannot be said that the aspirations of you, that you have as a governor, and the accountability measures that you have can be replicated to all the other counties. That is not true. There are counties that have challenges that defy human logic. And it's because of the tone at the top, the sort of leader who is there, and what they think the priorities ought to be.
I think I kind of misunderstood your question, but I think my answer is still relevant. Where the public comes in is that you have given a government the mandate, right? They will do what they have to do in 5 years. There are accountability mechanisms. And if the institutions of accountability play their role, they should put, without politicizing it, they should, as they say, prosecute each case on its own merit. But at the end of the 5 years, you will go back to the public. And you present yourself.
And that's where the ultimate accountability comes.
And where the ultimate accountability comes, right? The Americans elected Trump, right? And now it looks like they're on the verge of re-electing him.
Yes.
Let's see what happens. Yeah? A lot of others out there in the world probably have our own perception and views of things. But again, even the public has to be guided in certain aspects. As our brother here correctly says, if I were to ask my people, do I spend 100 million shillings on roads, or I recruit 300 people more for you? They'll tell me,
Chukua vijana.
Right? Right?
Yes.
And also our public. Why I say individual accountability? I have a serious pending bill problem in my county. Actually, it was one of the worst.
How does it arise?
The other day I was asked a question at the wage bill conference, and I said, let's discuss pending bills separately. I am a believer that the pending bill problem, both at national and county, is one of fiscal indiscipline. You can't explain it any other way.
Obviously.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you have budgets, you must stick by them. Yes, there are delays. And these delays sometimes in disbursements creates an environment that enables some sort of what we call in accounting team and letting you pay this with that, and in the process things do not match, and that creates an environment for those pending bills. But having said that, to give credit to National Treasury, even with delays, they have disbursed what was budgeted for year on year. Ultimately,
for what?
At the end of the year, you will receive your money.
Sometimes it might even cross over to the next year. Okay. But they still disburse.
Counties receive their money.
The counties will still receive their money. Okay. Now, when you go to a county where then you have 800 million principal sums of pensions not remitted, and then there's fiscal indiscipline. And we have a situation where you have account like Wajir being told you have 5 billion shillings in pending bills on paper. When we started doing the audit, it even went up. And these are our people. So sometimes they come to you and someone says, Governor, and
you owe me.
Mimi niko na LSO 10, lakini ni moja tu nimefanya. Tafadhali nilipwe hiyo. And then you tell him what of the other 9.
Yeah.
Anakwambia wewe huwezi lipa, mimi tangojea yule governor ata.
But I'll keep my LSO.
But I'll keep my papers. Yeah. So is the public also not participating in the corruption? So
yes.
And this, if the institutions were working right, and this is why sometimes, of course, there are also mandate issues. The challenge that we have with the controller, and we've said this formally, is a question of mandate, and to my understanding, the budget control mandate is different from the audit mandate.
So you would say that the control of budget is overstepping her bounds by asking you to be accountable?
Not accountable. It's the details of the information that is sought.
Should not be sought by her office.
And at times looks like it's information that ought to be sought by the
controller,
auditor.
by the auditor general.
Yes.
Would you be comfortable then giving this information if it's asked of you? If it was somebody else who was then living out their mandate to ask for that accountability matrix, would you be comfortable giving that out? Because you've spoken a number of times about the over politicization of accountability. For me, I don't think that can be an issue. 1 shilling, account for 1 shilling. One process from start to finish, account for that process.
Yes.
And I don't think that it's too much to ask for those things to be done at whatever level. But what you're saying is that the person who is asking for that accountability is overstepping their bounds. If it was another person who was fulfilling that mandate, would there be that uncomfortability as well?
I'm raising that purely from 2 perspectives. One is we all have constitutional mandates. It is good that we stick to our constitutional mandates. It can be at government level, at national government, county level, that's one. 2, of course, when the controller asks for that information, even if you feel that the controller is overstepping their mandate, you have to provide
the
information to get your money released, right? But it also lengthens the process of release and contributes to the delays in circulation of money in the economy. Because if the money is first of all delayed by 3 months from National Treasury, we're in which month now?
April. We're in April.
This week is when I'm disbursing or releasing or getting rather my January disbursement. We're in April. 2024. January is in quarter 3 because the fiscal year end of government is from July to June.
Yes.
So in January, February and March are in Q3. April is in Q4. It's the first month of Q4. Today we're at second half of April.
Yes.
And this week is when we're actually getting our money for
Q3.
Month 1, Q3.
Yeah. Treasury probably released it maybe 2 weeks back or something. And that 2 weeks is the process of now all this documentation and paperwork and go or change this and that. So, and it delays the process. But then there's another point also. If we have to provide all this information at the point of the money being released, right? And we also get audited at the end of the fiscal year when we spend the money, how did we end up with an 8 billion shilling pending bill?
That's the question.
Right?
That's the question we keep asking here.
How do we,
So how does this happen actually, Governor?
Don't we then need to lock ourselves in a room with the controller, with the auditor, and with everybody else and say what is working in this oversight and what is not working? So that it's not only one directional. It's not only blaming the counties. It's not only, why wasn't this picked? Why do I have to pay arrears of pensions relating to the last 5 years?
It should have been flagged by these gatekeepers, so to speak.
Yes. So, I'm not saying that they don't do a good job, but I'm saying we need to have honest conversations.
So
it will not help to just blame the counties.
Why does this conversation not happen, Governor?
Yes.
And as we are concluding, we are actually running into the news time, and so we just have 2 minutes as we conclude the conversation. There is the topmost organ called the summit.
Yes.
The president and all the 47 governors sit in that. When it comes to budget matters, there is IBEC, right?
Right.
The Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, where you sit with the deputy president, with the governors, you sit with now these others. You sit with CRA, the Treasury Minister is there, the control of budget comes in, they come in. Why don't these conversations happen? Why do we only hear issues of complaints of, there's little money that's being allocated to shareable revenue. There is no accountability. We are politicizing this fight. Why are these conversations not happening in those meetings? These are top-level constitutional meetings.
Eric, do you think they don't happen?
So what happens? When the conversations come up, how do they go?
Because everyone just defends their turf. This is a challenge we're seeing. I sit in IBEC. In the first 5 years, I was chair of the finance committee of the council. Now I'm vice chair. I have been involved in these negotiations for a long time. We bring these things out in IBEC. We bring them out in IBEC.
Then?
Yeah. But again, as I said, we have constitutional commissions that are independent, that ought to be independent. We have decided which ones to obey and which ones to disobey, which ones to make independent and which ones not to make independent. There is no one time that we've brought congruent figures between ourselves as council and Treasury and CRA. The one we ask for is always high. The one Treasury brings is always low. The one CRA brings is always in the middle. But there's no one time CRA's number was taken.
Or yours.
Or ours. Ours, don't even forget about it. Yeah. So this is the challenge we're having. And, we must say these things. There must be somebody who says these things. Even if I will sound politically correct, incorrect. There must be, I have a role as vice chair of council to defend the position of counties.
So which way forward?
Yeah.
Which way forward? Conversations have not happened. I mean, movement has not been seen in 10 years. Which way forward?
Way forward is this. Let's look beyond our stations of public life today, right? Let a senator not think that because he has a problem with his governor, then he will not fight for the rights and positions of counties, right? He will not defend counties. If you are a legislator, do not at the National Assembly level, do not legislate against counties because you don't like the way your county is being run, or you don't like your governor, or you are not in the same. let's not resist change with respect to the implementation of the Constitution. I actually believe if we adhered to and abided by the Constitution of this country, a lot of our problems will actually just evaporate. I am telling you, a lot of these are coming. He just mentioned about the issue of, was it you who talked about the assembly and the trips of the assemblies? We have created a situation where governors can actually tell the assemblies nothing. It's only the assemblies that can oversight the executive, right? But there's nothing we can tell our assemblies. Yet, as governor, you are the CEO of the government, and the government has two arms. So why is it that at the national level, the president can tell National Assembly certain things? No, this, you can't do this, you can't do that. But at the counties, we cannot. Kawira Mwangaza, remember, was impeached the first time before she formed her cabinet. Yes. Should Senate have just said, we won't even listen to this? Yeah.
Governor.
So these are the issues. Having said that,
we've got to end it there.
Having said that, yes, as governors, as counties, we must endeavor to improve everything that we are managing. We must continue dealing with the issue of ghost workers. We must, a lot of our counties are top heavy and bottom heavy. You know, there is issue of technical staff. We must continue looking at that. But again, there's no one size fits all with respect to these issues, counties. There are 47 different governments. And even the way a government is run, these 5 years might be different from the way it's run.
The next 5 years.
So let's all be true to the Constitution. Let's be true to the laws. Let's not overly politicize these things. Let's prosecute every case on its own merit and endeavor to improve governance across the board.
FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi, Governor Wajir County, Vice Chairman, the Council of Governors. He's been our guest.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.